Evening, everybody.
You are completely. Yes, hello. This is a fine time to start jokes. And Rupert Soskin over here. Yes. Yes. Rural broadband. Hmm. Yes. And hello to all of you. I'll just butt in there. When Mike says we won't be able to see, what he means is he won't be able to see because I can't see any of it anyway. Hello, Mo. Oh. Oh. That's a bit strange. Seeing as I'm coming through your transmission end, so. Oh. Well, in that case, I'll talk to you. But for those of you that didn't catch any of that, Michael is just juggling with some technical issues here. Apparently, his sound isn't coming through. So while he's sorting that out, yeah, just hello to everybody that's watching. And we've got a lot of things to catch up on this evening. All the things that have been going on over the last month. It's been a busy month, actually. A lot's been happening, and a lot more is just about to start happening, which is it's all quite exciting, really. I'm coming back over to the UK. What's the date? 17th, in a couple of weeks' time. And we'll be doing some more filming. That's something that we can talk about more when Michael's sound is actually functioning. But yeah, just things to catch up on. The Devil's Quoits film that a lot of you have said you liked very much. Well, we want to talk a bit about what we got from actually doing that, from making it, things that became apparent to us. That it's funny how when you find a site that has been properly reconstructed, that it just makes you think all sorts of different things. You know, we're used to, pick a
well
site.
Done,
Rupert.
Like, sorry, I'm back on now. I discovered.
Are you back?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry that we dropped out. I dropped out during the beginning of that, leaving Rupert to manfully struggle on alone. God, I know what that's like.
Yes.
So yeah, I think. What was I saying, Rupert?
So I would just for anybody that is interested, I was just going to say, if you pick a site like Stony Littleton, a Long Barrow, that has been beautifully restored to how we knew it was. It's been put together very well. The thing is, that's an isolated site. We know how a long barrow looked, and that's how it looked. But when you get a place like the Devil's Quoits that is massively complex, and it took this extraordinary degree of analysis of every archaeological clue they could drag out. Just such a phenomenal piece of work that you see something in a completely different perspective. And we were, certainly I was blown away by that more than any other site I've ever visited, including Callanish, which is that's really saying something. I don't know if you agree with that, Mike, but.
I mean, I'd like to come back to talk about that, and just after we've just said a few things about news and stuff, and welcoming people and stuff like that. But yes, you're absolutely right. Hold that thought. Because I just wanted to say, yes, people on YouTube and Facebook, please let us know that you're here by commenting. Say hello, just anything, laugh your face off or give us hearts or whatever you like. There's always the possibility also of hopping into the video link with us here. Via Skype.
Yes.
Now, if you want to do that, I'm putting my Skype name on the screen. It's thebottman. Go figure. If you find me on Skype, give us a call and we'll do our best to get you into the video here. If you really want to do that, we'd love to have you. It's a technology that's been underused, except by the very brave Andy Burnham.
Yes, hello Andy, if you're there.
Yeah. So that's always a possibility. So, Riss, hello there. Welcome. Thanks for saying hello. It's always good to know who's there. What else was I going to say? The thing is, what's been happening with us since the last time we went live? You were in the country then, weren't you? So we didn't have all these broadband problems. But I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that we've passed the 1,000 mark as far as the membership of the Standing with Stones community on Facebook. The Facebook group is concerned,
which is great, because I mean it's funny, isn't it, the difference between the people who just follow the page and the people who have joined the community and and do interact with each other even when we're not looking, which is fantastic. We love the fact that you're all using the platform and talking to each other and sharing. I mean, some of you are posting some fantastic photographs and news items and what have you, and it's very rewarding that you're all kind of jumping on board with that.
Yeah. And posting great stuff as well, a variety of stuff, and often educating us. It's a really great source for us, sites that we've never seen, never heard of, and great photographs and links you send us. It's kind of blown our minds in a way, just how. When we made Standing with Stones, we set off to our goal was to elucidate people as to just how many standing stones and stone circles, how many megalithic monuments, ancient monuments there were up and down the British Isles. And now, these 10 years on, and having the privilege of what you're bringing us, our minds are being blown by just how much stuff there is. Now, I'm afraid, Rupert, that your video has frozen. I'm going to send you away. Hopefully you'll be back very soon. Yes, so thank you so much for that, and all being nice and jolly and sharing. So here's to the next 1,000. Yeah. And do you know, one of the things that you guys can really do to help us is to share what we're doing here. Obviously, we're always asking nicely that people go over to Patreon, our Patreon page, and having a look at ways in which you can support what we're doing, making the podcast, making the films, and interviews, and the other stuff we're doing. And just one second. Trying to get Rupert back. I think I'll call him. See if that works. That's killed my video.
Hello.
That's better. Hello, you're back. You're back. Yeah. Yes, go over to Patreon, but and we're so grateful for the people that are supporting us via Patreon. But there are other ways in which you can help us, and that is by sharing what we're doing, making sure that as many people as possible know about the podcast and know about the videos, people that would be interested. So that's just a thought. Talking of Patreon, we have actually had a little bit of a surge in numbers, which is very gratifying and humbling.
Yes.
New members this month: Denise McLeod, Lainey Irvin, William Misko, Nicole, I don't know surname, Peter Vines, Adrian Henderson, Kathleen Crowley, Paul Skiles, and Andrew Brooks. Welcome to being a supporter of ours on Patreon. I hope we serve you well.
Grateful. Yeah, it's all good.
Also, new thing that started not long ago was the Standing with Stones Daily. I don't know if you've noticed on the Standing with Stones page, there's been a daily post which links to what looks like the front page of a newspaper with articles relating to the Neolithic, the Bronze Age, archaeology, and that kind of thing. Now, I have to say, I hope you're enjoying that, because some of the stuff is really nice to have and straight into your inbox, as it were, and to have quick access to. But you have to note that I don't, and neither does Rupert, curate the material. That's done automatically. So though it looks like a lot of work, it ain't. it's on auto. But I think but there is good stuff when it comes up there, and I hope you're enjoying that.
It's actually a remarkable use of the technology, really. I find it. I mean, even this, we complain about when my bandwidth goes crappy, but it is still a minor miracle. Well, for any of the older fogies amongst us, I mean, this is still Star Trek for us. That we can be separated by. I mean, in fact, we've got members of the community who are in the States, and I don't know if any of you are. No, you wouldn't be watching, would you? You should be at work. I don't know. But we can be separated by thousands of miles and doing this, and I still find it absolutely incredible, really. What would our ancestors have said?
Oh my goodness! So apart from those sort of landmarks, the 1,000 in the community, new patrons, it's a question of what we've been up to over the past month. So you will have noticed that there has been a new film about the Devil's Quoits in Oxfordshire. Hopefully you'll have noticed that. Anyway. Which is a great thing for Rupert and I, because it marks the first time that we've been able to work together in the same way that we did when we were making Standing with Stones, since Standing with Stones. So that's 10 years, and we're rather patting ourselves on the back for saying we seem to have slotted right back into the routine there.
It did come out all right. Especially, I think it's a remarkable thing with, I was saying earlier on, but the thing about the Devil's Quoits is that it's the only place that has been that, I can't think of a suitable adjective, but that meticulously
Yeah.
unraveled, and so every little nuance has been analysed and put back together.
Mm.
So the information is staggering, and I have to say that the things that we know about certain aspects of archaeological work and reconstruction, but one of the things that I was never aware of before I read the archaeological report, which is quite a tome actually, and that is that when they cut the trenches to do the analysis of the ditch, one of the things they did as they were cutting down through meters of soil was extract, from each layer, extract all the species of snail, because we know about the behavior of each species of snail, so they can say that, well, this one would only fed on a sedge, I mean, or and this one would only live in the damp and in the shade, and this one would like a bit. So they could actually tell, going back through thousands of years, they could tell what state the ditch was.
Yeah.
And
Well, this is the thing we mention when in the podcast, because we got all sciencey in the podcast, which is the other thing that's happened in the last few weeks. So if you haven't seen our heard our latest podcast, I mean, the place to go is standingstones.net, not standing with stones, standingstones.net. All the stuff is that's available that to the public is there on our web page. So there's other stuff that's only available to our Patreon supporters. So that's secret. You have to be a Patreon supporter to get that stuff.
Ooh, it's a club.
It's a cult. Hello to Andrew Cottrell. Hello there.
Hello, Andrew.
Thanks for joining us. Right. And yes, if anybody else has just joined us, please do say hello. Just type in whether on Facebook or YouTube or where are you? Just say hello. It's nice to know that.
I say again, I rely completely on Michael to tell me what the messages are as they come up, because I can see nothing here. I'm just talking to Michael.
Yes. So we did the Devil's Quoits, and we did the
podcast.
The podcast, very good.
Yes.
So what's coming? What's next? This is the thing. What can folk expect in the next
in the next weeks?
In the next weeks.
Well, in the next weeks, I'm coming back over, and we're going to be doing some more filming. This is something that, well, I'm saying it's going to be a regular thing now, which it is. But just trying to get at least another one in before winter takes hold. Not least of all because there's that many fewer available filming hours during each day. But the weather just makes things, well, let's just say logistically different. I mean, if you're going to be filming in the winter, you want it to be stunning, don't you? So we want snow everywhere. If it's just grey and horrible, then that doesn't make for great film. So
Mike Mudd, hello there. Thanks
for
saying hello. Nice to know you're there. And general note as well, of course, if you've got any questions at all, do butt in. Anything burning topics you want us to air or think about, or areas of mystery you want us to solve for you. Please do feel free to put a question in there. I've just noticed something. Can I say something? I've just noticed that I've got an option to add people to the broadcast via the app here. So if you do want to join in, if you want to come in on the video, just let me know. Just let us know through a comment, and we can bring you in through Skype. Okay. Alan Simpkins says it's easier to get through the gorse to the sites in winter, though.
That is a fair
That
point.
is very true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gorse can be nasty.
Just wear thicker clothes.
So, yes, filming in November we will be with Rupert over here. We don't know, or do we? We don't know which site it'll be, or whether it'll be more than one site, or what the subject matter is. It's a little bit of an ongoing discussion, that.
Yes.
Yeah. However, the good news is, because Rupert's going to be over here, we will be able to record the next podcast in the same room at the same time.
Yes.
Which will be good. Yeah. Oh, I tell you what. We've also, it's well overdue. But from the summer, I've still got a little video about Boscawen Un to edit. So I think that will be with you in a week or so, maybe even just a few days. So that's been pending for a long time. It's a nice little one. Don't want to give you any plot spoilers there. And just one more thing. Coming up, Rupert and I are going to be at the Wiltshire Museum on the 10th of November, all being well. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's a talk by a lady, I forget her name now, about the exchange of flint axes between Scandinavia and the UK, Britain, whatever it was, during the Neolithic, which is another sort of mind-expanding thought, and gives us another perspective on what was going on all that time ago. So anyway, I just wanted to get those things out of the way, Rupert. So back to Devil's Quoits. It was quite a thing for both of us, wasn't it? Let us know if you've been to the Devil's Quoits yourselves, your thoughts and perspective on that, if you've been to that site. If you haven't, we recommend you do go. The surprising thing to me has been, though, people have had differing views, differing reactions to visiting the site. And I'm amazed that there are some people don't like it or, find it disappointing. Our minds were blown.
Really? Now, okay.
I think what happens is people look, it depends on the weather. I mean, it can look pretty dull. But I think because some of the stones, quite a lot of the stones are fresh out of the ground, relatively, it being a reconstruction, they still got that fresh brown Oxford clay orangey colour to them, which makes it gives the stones a sort of the circle a variegated.
Do you know what? I'll go further than that, and I think, and I hope I don't offend anybody here, because we're all guilty of this to a certain extent, and that's where our ignorance colours our view of certain things, and a lot of people have read the information about the site that says it's a reconstruction, that all the stones bar one were removed over centuries, really, and so what people take from that very often is that we don't really know if it was like that, because they found stones and they put them in. If you actually go into the full depth of the archaeological report and look at the staggering analysis of every single nuance. So, for example, when they went round excavating each of the slots where the standing stones were, well, they measured exactly the dimensions of the slot. So how deep was it? Because you can tell from the depth, there's always a correlation between the depth in the soil and the amount standing up outside the soil in comparison with the width as well. So they measured the depth, the actual shape, and there were diagrams of the shape of every slot. So they could calculate from that. Now, obviously, they can't calculate whether it was a wedge shape or whether it was a straight up shape. But what they can tell is that if you go from the one stone that was remaining, the one stone that was always there, so if you extrapolate from that, then you know that it was going to be if you compare the slot of the stone that is still there, and then say, well, okay, if it's that kind of stone and we know what the local geology is, then it means for a slot of this size, the stone was most likely this, certainly within very narrow parameters. So the way they put it back together it's as good as you're going to get, really.
Yeah.
And so you almost have to throw away the any of the negative connotations of the word reconstruction.
Yes.
They put it back together. You know, it's pretty much spot on to what it would have been. And when you look at things like the berm, that was a new one on us, actually. The
technical term, explain.
Yeah, the berm is the correct term for the level bank between the level. What would you call that?
Ground.
Yeah, okay.
Level could call it a walkway.
We call it walkway. That's between the ditch and the bank. So you've got the bank sloping down. He said, looking to see if his hand is actually in screen, and then the level walkway, and then the ditch. So the width of the berm, and I was staggered at how wide that actually was, and so your mind goes reeling into, well, what was this actually for? And you can, your mind can go in all directions, because the truth is, I don't know, it could be anything.
Yeah. But the
what
thing
amazed me was when you compare that with places like, so the biggest henge of all, Avebury. We're not going to include Durrington because it's a slightly different thing there. But the biggest henge of all, Avebury, and you look at the remains of the berm around Avebury, and it's almost suggesting that the berm at the Devil's Quoits could even have been bigger than it was at Avebury, and that just makes you wonder, well, why? What? Wow, what?
Yeah.
Why? How?
I tell you what. I mean, the fact was that for the both of us, because on the approach to wherever you come from, I think the Devil's Quoits, you can't see it until you've climbed the bank.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful reveal. And if you don't go with expectations, it is quite astounding. We were both knocked over. I think there's a little 360 video knocking about somewhere of us sort of gawping at it. Yeah. Can I just digress? I just want to include some people. I did post up the comments on the screen for those that can see. Alan Simpkins will be at the Cornish Archaeology Conference on the 10th of November. So,
right
on the 10th of November, that is. Yes. That's the same date we're at the Wiltshire Museum.
The same day we're in Wiltshire, yes.
Mo Keown is going to the Devil's Quoits on the 27th of this month.
Excellent.
And to Knowlton Henge.
Oh, good.
Yes. And I'll put this up again. Andrew Cottrell asked, well, as we all know, there's been a lot of stuff exposed by the drought. Are there any sites in particular that have interested us, that have been or have exposed some or have exposed some answers to some questions? I think I get the question. These are the things that have been revealed by drone footage. I'll come back to that, Andrew, if that's okay. And also, Andrew asks, are digs in investigations on the increase nationally? Is there funding? Is there a growing interest in general for archaeology? Really good question. And that's and Alan's got a third one coming. Alan, you don't think us rude, but we'll save this other one, but we'll keep those two in mind. Margaret Bailey says, good evening to everybody. And Anthony, otherwise otherwise known as Mythical Ireland. Anthony Murphy, welcome. And Anthony's watching from the Boyne Valley, and he's watching on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, okay. We know it's working then. Excellent.
So CVSHTY 14 says, how long are you going to be streaming? My dad will be here soon. we
Well,
we will be, how long have we been going? We're
half
30 minutes
program.
in. We'll be going
Yeah.
at least another 30 minutes. I'm not going to get anal about finishing this on the hour. And anyway, the video won't disappear when it finishes. It will still remain on YouTube and on Facebook for people to enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we just nip back to that
Absolutely.
question? I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather all this up without being able to read anything. So
No, I'm sorry. Do you want me to put?
Sorry,
Which one?
who was it? Who was it that asked the question? The one I wanted to answer was about is there a growing interest in archaeology and are more digs going on?
That was Andrew's second question. Andrew
Oh,
Cottles.
Andrew, well, I think it's an important thing to bear in mind here is that there are a number of universities who do phenomenal amounts of research generally, and obviously archaeology doesn't just cover from Paleolithic down to Iron Age. A lot of it is medieval stuff or whatever, but the thing is that an awful lot of digs are going on all the time that never really hit the public arena at all. And so you've got PhDs being done and papers being written that they just sit in places where the dedicated archaeologists will go and look them up and stuff. The public never get to hear.
Really good point.
It's certainly worth, if it's something that you personally are interested in, then it is worth looking up. Bournemouth University, for example, where Tim Darvill is based, it's worth looking up. You go to any of the universities that run archaeology courses, because you have to bear in mind that any of the major digs are done by universities. They're directed by the field archaeologists, but it's an awful lot of archaeology students who are doing the graft.
So I was invited up to a dig in the Cotswolds. In fact, it was by Bournemouth University under the auspice of Tim Darvill, and that's going on, and you won't hear about that for a long time. The results or the report won't come out for a long time, and you won't even necessarily hear about it then.
No,
unless something completely mind-blowing. Actually, I think there is mind-blowing stuff, but the archaeological community will be the ones to hear about it, and unless somebody bothers to write a book that gets published, then or us, we keeping tabs on things, manage to get it out to you. But so that's that. The funny thing is, we're looking for new projects and we're looking for new stuff to do. And one of the things is, sorry, what made you laugh, Soskin?
It's just the fact that there is so much.
Oh, yeah.
We're like kids in a sweet shop.
It's crazy. But what I was going to say is that the Devil's Quoits kind of threw us a googly as far as this. There was this site, and when we dug around, we found this fantastic archaeological report, which it was so detailed. It sort of gave us a different perspective on how we approach things. But anyway, I digress slightly, because what I was also going to say, yes, there are a lot of archaeological digs going on, but a lot of that is driven by development.
That's true too. Yeah.
And these are the things. These are the ones that you hear about. They're the ones that waterways have been put in, or motorways. And they have to stop because a henge has been discovered, or a causewayed enclosure, or something like that. That gets into the local news, and then that gets fed out. That's how you hear about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the archaeology that gets done because things are found when developments come across things in the ground. That's the stuff you hear about. The other stuff that's going on, unless it's Ness of Brodgar, maybe. Göbekli Tepe, of course, and Catalhoyuk. There's the famous ones that are current. Yeah.
Well, it's a sad fact that that so much of, because everything is commercial these days. It's a sadness really that everything is so corporate money driven. So if something is really glamorous, like Göbekli Tepe is a good example. If it's really glamorous, then people throw money at it because it's going to be exciting and it's going to sell papers and magazines and whatever. But a lot of the sites that, so for example, take a site that it's been known about forever, Stonehenge, perfect example. But so many of the other sites that are tucked all the way around the country that everybody knows about them because towns are still nearby. It's always been a place of a settlement, so there's a stone circle not far outside of a town. But the thing is that if that was last seriously looked at by archaeologists 70 years ago, well, they haven't been back and redug it since then, which means that all we know about it is the information that was at our disposal then. So we don't have any carbon-14 dating for it. All we're going on is whether it looks like this, and this is something that we know about. And it's breathtaking how often a site it's given an age. It's called Neolithic because it looks like that one up north that we know is Neolithic, when in actual fact there isn't any evidence to support it. The evidence hasn't been dug for. And that's something that is changing very, very slowly over time. When you think that there are, across the British Isles, we said in the first film, that there are 1,000 stone circles. Well, if you start including all the others, the dolmens and everything else as well. I mean, I don't know how many thousand there are. Nobody knows exactly how many thousand there are, but there's going to be at least 50,000 and probably a lot more than that. And so the time it takes for people to gradually think, do you know what, maybe we should go and have a look at that one. It's going to take decades, decades.
So have we answered that question? Yes, there is more going on, but I think that's the cause of that is a lot of development going on, and I think probably local media are probably quite tuned to things being found in the ground as well. They quite like that. So the other question you asked, Andrew, was about the dry summer exposing stuff in the ground. I'll put that up again. Yes, that's been all over the news, and there've been masses of stuff all over. And of course, one of the things that happens, yes, we find stuff in the ground, but that creates a huge problem. Even though masses of new stuff gets found, that doesn't mean to say it's going to get dug or investigated at all, ever. Because there are all sorts of problems with land ownership and stuff. Anthony will tell you all about that, because yes, the answer to that, the other bit of that question, is a particular site that took our interest was, of course, the discoveries that Anthony made in the Brunebonia. And indeed, that's why we had him on and had a very excellent interview with him, a podcast special with Anthony, which if you go to the website at standingstones.net, you will find not far down the page interview with Anthony Murphy about his discovery and the problems.
If you haven't listened to it, seriously, do look it out on the website, because Anthony is an absolute mine of information and a lot of fascinating stuff, particularly about the mythology and how that correlates with prehistory. Fascinating stuff, really is.
And Anthony is watching us now in the Boyne Valley on YouTube, so that's nice.
Yes.
Quick shout out for Jason Field, who's just joined us late. Good to see you, and thanks for being here. And thanks for sort of asking a question on Facebook about being more. Maybe we should do more site-specific podcasts. I thought it was a good point. When I looked back through, we had actually done a fair number of site-specific stuff, but it's something I think we should keep our minds on rather than going off into the wild blue yonder sometimes, perhaps.
Yes. I did want to say, though, just on the back of what we were talking about there about sites being discovered and Anthony finding the site near Newgrange.
Are you going to Witter for a couple of minutes? Because I'm going to. I'll be back.
I'll Witter. I'll Witter until you return.
Shall I put the dog in my place?
No, what I was going to say was talking about whether digs actually get commissioned, as it were. That one of the things to bear in mind is that if a site is discovered on farmland, so this is however many acres of valuable crop. Well, that's the farmer's livelihood, and so whichever university are not going to come along and say, here you are, here's 50 grand while we dig your field. It's not going to happen. So that's why there are an awful lot of places where something might have been found, but to actually get a dig planned and commissioned is, it's major. So many things need to be taken into account. Which is one of the things, where Michael was saying that a lot of things a lot of things happen because of development. That's where if planners have decided they're going to put a new housing estate up somewhere, that the amount of times that something gets turned up when they've started to dig for foundations, and then everything has to stop, and archaeologists come in and they have a look to see if this is something worth further analysis. And hello, Leica. Leica is an important team member.
So pay no attention to Rupert.
But that's why so much of the funding of these things, a lot of it does come from the commercial world, where the developers really want these things they want their housing estate to happen. So the faster they can get everything else sorted out, the better. So it's an irony really that actually the act of trying to destroy these sites is what actually gets them analysed in the first place a lot of the time.
Yeah, swings and roundabouts, very much so. Mark Summerton is with us.
Oh, hello, Mark.
Yay.
We were talking about you earlier on.
Yes, we were. We talked about, we didn't talk about you in the podcast itself, but yes, we were quite taken aback that having done our sciencey podcast about isotopes and magnetometry and protein analysis, we found...
Mark is an acquaintance of mine, and it's funny how you can you can give each other verbal abuse for any period of time. And it was only after we'd done the last podcast with our attempt at unraveling some of the more scientific aspects of it that Mark messaged and said that I made a list of it here, that he was a lab technician. He did X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, he did atomic absorption spectrometry, UV spectrometry, and nuclear magnetic resonance spectrometry. Do you think, well, good grief, now we could have talked to you.
Yeah, well, Mark, do you want to come into the video here?
If you want to.
Say yes.
I find it's so exciting when you find
Binky Beaver is giving you a Facebook hand clap.
Hello, darling. Bing's a very good friend of mine. It's really exciting when you find that somebody in your immediate group, if you like, is actually more au fait with a whole chunk of stuff than we are. So yeah, Mark, we'd love to know some of your experience with spectrometry, because the thing that is so
Binky Beaver's blowing you kisses now.
See, it gets better. It's really enthralling when you think the amount of things that we we know on a kind of surface level, so we talk about even carbon-14 dating. I mean, and I don't want to be boring for those of you that have already listened to the podcast, but we know all the time we talk about carbon-14 dating, and so we accept the terminology and we know kind of roughly what it means, but then we move on. We never actually get into, well, how do they do that then? And it's when you get into the, well, how do they do that you realize the breathtaking skill in actually being able to unravel the information that's coming from the chemistry. It's staggering. It's just staggering. And as a species, it's amazing how we can be so clever and yet so dumb, both at the same time.
Mark says he's not got much to offer really, but we'll drop a line.
Okay. All right, we'll take that. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you're watching anyway. It's no, it's exciting. I think the technological side. One of the things that really surprised me when we were making the first film was the magnetometry readings at Stanton Drew.
Yeah.
Where just from somebody methodically plodding their way across a field with a piece of kit, that's, all this invisible stuff suddenly manifests. And I'm longing for the day that you can go out and for 50 quid, buy a portable magnetometer, or I know all magnetometers are portable, but you know what I mean. One that you could just to put it in the boot of your car. You go on.
One moment. Our biggest fan from the States, Thomas Ambrose, our big Patreon supporter and fan, Thomas. Has joined us from the States. He's watching on YouTube. Wow. Fantastic. Good to see you.
Do you know, I've forgotten whereabouts in the States you are, actually. What time of day is it? So we're all over the place. It's 10 to 10 for me.
It's 10 to 9 for me.
So, yeah. Well, welcome. It's nice to have you on.
Yeah, it really is. Glad you can make it. Excellent. Sorry to interrupt, Rupert.
That's all right. What was I saying?
Not much.
No.
But I think going back to what I was saying about the Devil's Quoits, don't want to bang on about it too much, but I think the experience of filming there and doing the research for it has informed a lot about how we will be going forward, our approach to other places and our approach to filmmaking in general. Will kind of change. I have to say, one of the names in the frame for the next film, and this isn't, we're not saying it is going to be about the Rollright Stones. There it is, I said it. But it is a consideration. It is that we feel that in order to be able to do a site justice with the way that we work, we need quite a lot of detailed information about that site. There needs to be a story that isn't a few words long. There's got to be substance behind it for us to get our teeth into it and to deliver you a decent story and an entertaining and educational, but informative and watchable piece of video.
It's worth broadening that. I think that you see, one of the things that we were very, very lucky with the Devil's Quoits, that
thank you, Rosamond.
Level, yes, thank you, Ros. Ros, Mike's sister, who actually alerted us to its existence. We didn't know. We just didn't know. How shameful is that? We didn't know. But the thing is that Devil's Quoits, that degree of analysis has been done. The archaeology has been done. Now that is rare. In fact, it's probably fair to say that Stonehenge is probably the only other place that's had that kind of attention. Really? they're few and far between where the money has actually been put in for that kind of analysis. So you go,
well, to my point, Rollright Stones is the third best known site in the whole of the UK.
Yes.
There is no real archaeology to do with the site. There's pottery that's not been, there's pottery that's been dated, but not from within the circle. That's to do with the Whispering Knights.
Yeah.
The place it's all over the place as far as a proper archaeological story is concerned.
Yeah, you see,
plenty of folklore
Yeah.
pouring out of every hole in the stones there, but archaeology, not so much.
Yeah. It is scant, which means that what we think we know, we don't only think we know. We don't actually know anything. So when it comes to, the fact that we were able to really put flesh on the bones at Devil's Quoits was a real treat for us. Now, obviously, there's going to be an awful lot of places where we might have a lot to say, but it might not necessarily be about stuff that has been archaeologically proven. There may well be places where, just because of the, we can be very cynical about all sorts of things. And a lot of you will know that as soon as anybody says the word temple, then I just start to twitch, because it's just based on absolutely nothing. And it might have been, but stop saying it, because it probably wasn't. It drives me mental. But the thing is that there are so many sites where, in fact, stop putting labels on it. Stop saying that it's a burial ground, or because I made the analogy we made the analogy in the first film that you wouldn't go to Westminster Abbey and call it a burial site just because there are graves in the nave. You wouldn't. So to call something a burial site is a supposition and a simplification. So if you can find a site, and I'm thinking of, there's a number of sites on Dartmoor actually where, if you just take a real step back and look at the site overall, where you've got hut circles and you've got a stone row or two and you've got a stone circle, and so you can look at this massive settlement, and just by being as objective as you possibly can, you can see how you've got all these different types of structure, which we know that this kind of structure was a house, and we don't know what the circle was for, but we can pretty much say it was at least a meeting ground, even if we don't know for what purpose. The thing is, you can start to build up your information so long as you don't start putting badges on things. As soon as you put badges and labels on things, that's when you stop looking for the alternatives.
Well, your thinking gets stuck, and you don't realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where he said, without wanting to sound too pompous, but I think that's what we're good at. That we can unravel things a bit,
and we have to be we have to be aware of getting stuck in our own thoughts. Because we all have our nice ideas that we'd like to be true.
Yes.
We're certainly guilty of that. But I hope that if we can be proven that we're wrong, that we're very happy to be proven wrong.
Indeed. And I think it's also fair to say, in the purest spirit of science, we do also look for things to disprove what we're thinking as well, which is very, very important. Temple.
But one thing that has happened in my mind since we did Devil's Quoits, and I think really it's sort of been building in the last few. Yes, Lay Blumans, it is live. So if you're interested in this stuff, Neolithic, Bronze Age, and Neolithic and ancient monuments and stuff, and archaeology and prehistory, you're in the right place. That is a comment from Periscope, so that's a first.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. This is the first time we broadcast to
Thank
Periscope. We're going out to Facebook and YouTube and Periscope simultaneously. So welcome. Hope this is
That's exciting. Sorry, who was that on Periscope?
Levy Blumans.
Hello, Levy.
That's all.
Excellent.
Yes, I don't know if that's right. Anyway, sorry, I was saying since we've resurrected, is that the right word? But you know what I mean. Since we started the podcast back in March or April, yes, and started thinking about this stuff, we had been a bit on the back burner. So our knowledge levels hadn't necessarily increased in that 10 years since we did Standing with Stones. And I think Standing with Stones, came from a very particular angle. We wanted to tell the story of a journey through the UK, visiting as many sites as we possibly could, but picking up the surface information along the way to make it interesting.
I hesitate to say speak for yourself, but I've done a huge amount of research on the European and global megaliths.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. I'm so sorry. I'm speaking for myself. You've done an awful lot of stuff. You're on the verge of writing a blooming book about it, indeed. So I stand well corrected. But even so, as far as UK stuff, and as far as a lot of the stuff that we did talk about in the film, we are, since in the last 6 months, we have had our minds and eyes opened to quite a lot of extraordinary stuff that we didn't know was there, or research that we didn't know had been done, or archaeology that we didn't know had been done. For example, case in point, we knew there were a few cursuses up and down the country, but oh my goodness gracious me.
Yes.
And we come across a huge study of the hundreds of cursuses there are up and down the land, and suddenly, oh my God, that's a whole hour-long film if we were to tackle that.
And some of the cursuses,
there's nothing to see, so you can't really make
we didn't know. Just how many are there in Scotland?
Oh no, I've forgotten. Honestly, this was a study.
Just curses in Scotland.
No,
so
but even better, right? I live not far from Stratford-upon-Avon, right, in a village called Wellesbourne. Apparently, there's a Wellesbourne cursus.
Who knew?
In the next village along, has got 3 curses.
Who knew? Yeah.
There is a Barford cursus. There is a Barford henge, 3 miles from here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. So so the mind-blowing thing for us is beginning to get a picture of Britain saturated with community and with things going on, of people farming, of people buying and selling stuff, of interacting with each other. We get a feeling not of this, dotted circles, once every 10 miles, but just a density of population getting on with life.
Well, it's something that I sound such a grumpy bastard. It's something that irritates the hell out of me is when you read a lot when they say that this site was built by Neolithic farmers, for example. And I always said, well, that's like saying that the Shard or the London Eye was built by office workers. It's such a stupid thing to say. It doesn't give you any true complexion of what the society and culture was actually like at all. The fact that it's just
that it was structured, it was hierarchical. People had many skills, and many specialized skills as well.
And also an interesting add-on to that is one of the things that we were talking about in the film about the Devil's Quoits is we do know about the extent of the trade routes, and if you have got a massive trade route where people are moving livestock and pottery and axes of various different types. Well, you've got to have plenty of people to sell them to, and how much does something cost? If you've got an axe that took you, I don't know how many hours it would take you or days it would take you to make a good axe. But what are you selling that for? What's the price of that axe? Bearing in mind that, as far as we know,
that's a fascinating one.
This is free money.
How was trade done? What were barter over distance? I think not. Interesting.
So what do? Do you exchange a pig for an axe, or what?
Can I interject with a few comments from online? Mark Summerton says he read recently that there's a sarsen stone in Ealing, near where I live. Yeah.
Hang on. Ely, what?
Ealing.
East. Ealing.
West London. Yes.
Is there?
Well,
is there? I didn't know
Mark has read that there is. Mind you, it depends where he read it, doesn't it?
Anyway, if he says it, it's probably true.
Yeah. Levy Blumans, I hope I'm sort of saying that right, if there's a way of saying it. You should write a book / guide about megalithic sites combined with real ale. Now, the man, I don't know if there's a man or a lady, has got a point. With maps. Megalithic sites, real ale, maps.
Do you know what? I was going
our life is mapped out.
Before Mike read out real ale, I was going to say, do you know what? There's just no money in books these days, and there isn't. Trust me. But yeah, real ale, that might actually make people buy the book. We can ponder on that one.
So, that's interesting, Mike. Mud. I tried to see Barford Henge. Nothing in the crop marks.
No,
but this was before. No, I think it's under the motorway.
Yeah, that's one of the big frustrations is that, and there are so many, particularly not far from where Mike lives.
Yeah,
there are.
Can I just say, if anybody knows where I can get a hands on the archaeological report of there was a comprehensive dig at Barford. If anybody knows where I can get a hands on the report, I'd be most grateful. Where do you live, Mike? Where exactly do you live? Yeah. There's a barrow at the back of Loxley. Which is just up the road here. Gee whiz. Sorry, hold what you were saying, Rupert. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's important that include people. Thomas Ambrose, who's in New York, by the way.
Hello, Thomas.
Again? Is that New York City or New York State? Off top, a gentle reminder of the recent discussion about the creating of a small lexicon of terminology for those of us still new to the discipline. It's a really good point. It's a really, really, really good point. You said the word berm, B-Y-R-M-E, earlier on.
It was actually B-E-R-M.
B-Y-R-M.
No, B-E-R-M, berm.
Oh, B-E-R. Well, it just goes to show how much I know, doesn't it? Anyway.
Yeah, but no, we should do that. In fact, I will do that. I will write myself a note.
There you go. There you go, Thomas. There you go. If you don't ask, you don't get.
A glossary of terms, shall we say?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Mark says he plans a journey to find out if the Ealing sarsen stone is real. Let us know.
Excellent. Yeah, no, look forward to that, actually.
And Mike Mudd lives in Bulkington.
Do you know what? You want to be careful doing that, Mike. Yeah, don't do that.
Why?
Yeah, sorry. It's just one of those cases where you're all right at the moment, but it's one of those where you're suddenly putting the camera almost up your nose and you think, you know what, you might be taking a risk there.
Oh, right. Bulkington. Where's Bulkington?
Bulkington.
I shall investigate.
Okay. It's no. What I was going to say was that it's amazing how many sites were excavated pre-technology. So, even if that was 50 years ago, I mean, just the way archaeology has changed in the last 10 years, let alone 20 and 30 and 40. So there were a lot of sites that were excavated some while back. A lot of the henges and barrows in the Midlands, I mean, Oxfordshire, going down into Wiltshire, that are just not there anymore. If you go to the place, all right, it's still there, but there is nothing to see on the landscape. It's breathtaking, really. That thank God for drones, because that actually allows you to see a little bit of certainly where something was, but the fact that we know that there were you can tell the shape of a long barrow, for example. So you can tell that this thing, maybe it looked like Belus Nap, which they say is the reclining form of a female body. I've never been convinced by that, but maybe. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I do understand why. So I'm not saying I think it's wrong. I'm just saying I need to be more convinced, because I just think that if they really wanted it to be that illustrative of, then they could have done it better than that. But anyway, be that as it may, the point is that, and I can't remember its name offhand, but they found only a couple of years ago, they found a new long barrow in Wiltshire, and all that you could see from the drone footage, all that you could see was this form, which was reminiscent of, as I said, places like Belus Nap. So it was there, but it's completely flat because the field has been ploughed in however many times a year for the last 200 years. And amazingly, the actual outline, because of the soil differences, that you could tell that it was there. So the archaeological work being done there now is, again, staggering that we can even do it. But if you just went to the site hoping to see it, nothing to see.
I think that the other thing, and this is something else that we've got in train to do, to sort out for you on your behalf, and it's something that we didn't give a sense of because we weren't really conscious of it when we were making the original film, we're making Standing with Stones, and that's the breadth of time between all these sites. We're talking up to 2,000 years. And we tend to look at them, bunch them all together because they're all together now, in this time, in this space. Yeah. But these things went through phases. Some went through long phases, some went through short phases. And whether or not such and such a stone circle was in use, to coin a phrase, at the same time as the nearby long barrow, or the nearby round barrow, it's another matter entirely. We see them all as one. But getting a story from the spread of time and how things developed during the late Neolithic and the early Bronze Age, that's quite a task.
Yeah, well, it's a very important point, and I think that if you look at the very basic aspects of what we do ourselves now. So look at London. Yes?
I've got a good question coming in, which is always a good thing. This stops us wittering about, what is it. So, sorry, Levy Bloomans says, apart from Duddo stones, in your opinion, why is the northeast of England void of any megaliths?
It's lack of stone predominantly.
Yeah.
That any of the significant structures there would have been timber, because stone would have had to have been brought in from massive That's the wrong.
And it doesn't it doesn't only
Great
apply to
distance.
the northeast, of course. It's the the west. I mean, the east, east of England, very generally. There's a sort of dividing line right down the middle.
Yeah, and you could if you look at a geological map of the British Isles, and it will give you quite a clear indication, really, of why stone was easily the building material of choice. Oh Lord, I mean, right the way from the Scottish Islands down, and we should never presume that just because there are no sites to be found in the east, that they weren't there. They just would have timber.
Yeah, timber.
So long since rotted away.
Do we include Rudston monolith must count as a northeast monolith?
Yeah, but I think it's important to when we're talking about the east, it's a diagonal line that goes across the British Isles, really. If you, I'm trying to think of a decent.
Rudston is what, below Scarborough, isn't it? Somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you know what we should remember more clearly? But the fact still remains. If you go up to somewhere, so take the extremes. You go to Orkney, and the thing is that the bedrock naturally splits into usable layers. Now, if you go to just go more south west, if you've got, say, Carboniferous limestone being the underlying geology, well, if that fractures, then okay, you'll get some good standing stones out of it. But as a building material, it doesn't really work. There's nothing regular about it. And so you've got different aspects of usability, which is why you'll find, places like, talking about Orkney, that, look at Skara Brae. Skara Brae, it's just, it's modular building bricks, because that's what you just go and pick up.
You pick it out of the ground. Yeah.
Well,
that's what quite blew my mind about something I didn't realize. I know I was talking earlier about going to the Sisters Long Barrow, which is an archaeological dig going on at the moment near Cirencester. It is that the ditch around it is a quarry ditch. So when they built a long barrow, the stuff didn't come from miles away or even hundreds of yards away. It came from right round the barrow. Dig down through the soil there, you get this fractured limestone stuff. You put it out and you put it in, you pile it in the middle. Bingo, you've got a long barrow. Not to disrespect the effort and time and thought that goes into it. Can I just also go to the feed here? GMT, that question by Thomas has been sorted out. Luke Rake on YouTube says, just a note to say thank you for the Standing with Stones programs, which I've enjoyed so many times.
Excellent.
Family treks in the last few years to both Lewis and Orkney have inspired our youngsters. Yeah, job done.
That's great. That's great. There is nothing more rewarding than inspiring youngsters. It's just the best thing you can ever do.
Thank you for that, Luke. And Mike Mudd says, I think it was Alex Gibson who dug Barford. I shall keep that in mind.
Okay.
Search around that. Rudston is, the gypsy race near Bridlington. That's right. The Luke's quote goes on. To extend Luke's children who have, despite themselves, come to enjoy the Neolithic wonder we foist upon them. I grew up on Dartmoor.
Kind of reluctant enjoyment.
Yeah, I grew up on Dartmoor with the Bronze Age material. My response to Skara Brae was similar to Rupert in the DVD. Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Luke. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And he's now in Dorset enjoying and promoting through his educational establishment, the South Dorset Ridgeway.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you can send us stuff, Luke. Just let us know what you're doing. It's always good to hear when people are, digging in.
If you're Jason says, sounds like me and my son.
Excellent, even better. It just goes on, doesn't it? That's it's lovely. If your kids enjoy it too, it's just wonderful. In fact, look at podcast 7. So our Stonehead of the month this month was Angel Keown, who is 10 years old, and Mo Keown's daughter. It's lovely when you've got families who can really enjoy this stuff together, because it is intoxicating when you've got these, they're mysteries. We all love a mystery, but when you can start to unravel mysteries, when you when you just step back and look at stuff and try to understand it in a different way, it is exciting. And I think it's great when youngsters really do get on board with stuff, because the thing is that it's so easy to get lost in modern technology, kids playing on their iPads and all the rest of it. We need an ongoing thing of people being enthralled by archaeology so that this research carries on and develops in the coming decades, when the rest of us are too crusty to be going out there and carrying it on. So I love it when you hear that youngsters are enjoying it too. I will, before you start talking about the time, because
you read my mind. Yes.
I just wanted to finish something that I started saying a little while ago, because I think it's relevant when it comes to you were saying about you get a collection of sites, and you're talking about the roll rights, and it's is a good example where you have this a group of monuments. So you've got a standing stone that has always been called an outlier, but research says, well, it probably wasn't an outlier. It's probably marking a cemetery. And then you've got a stone circle, and then you've got a dolmen. But in actual fact, they are separated by ridiculous lengths of time. And yet visually, we look at this as a unified site. And I think it's important to bear in mind that if you just look at London, where slap back in the middle, you've got Westminster Abbey, and you've got St Paul's Cathedral, and you've got London Bridge, and you've got the Shard, and you've got, you take your pick. The point is that you have something where we know that Londinium, we know that it's been a functioning city for 2,000 years and would have been, a hub of activity prior to that. And we can look at brick or block built structures that, if we're archaeologists from 5,000-10,000 years in the future looking at London, then we have exactly the same issue, that we're looking at something as a unified site, but it's something that's been developed over potentially thousands of years. And it's exactly the same with archaeology. You just need to bear that in mind, that sometimes what you're looking at is it's misleading if you, again, it's putting badges on things. You can't make assumptions about how these things were put together, which is another reason why the technological side of archaeology is increasingly important, because we're able to date things in more accurate ways, and that changes the way we view the development of culture. Really, that's what I wanted to say.
Sorry, forgive me looking to my side off here. I'm getting all overexcited because Alan Simpkins sent me a link, which I believe is a Word document, which is a load of stuff about the Barford Henge. if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
well done.
Yes, so that's really great. Thank you so much for that, Alan. That's really most welcome. Thank you. Who's it? Jason. Jason said he was watching a school tour around Avebury yesterday. Lucky kids. I only got taken to zoos and the like when I was at school. Mo says Angel will be watching this podcast tomorrow. She's gonna love it. You mentioned her. Has she not heard the podcast already, Mo? Yeah. But anyway, so she's it's a school night, so she's in bed. So Michael says, excellent broadcast tonight, you guys. Thank you so much. We aim to please. So I'm not desperately trying to wrap up, but I am conscious of that these things can go on forever, and we want it to be watchable. So good. Yes. No. Alan sent me recent work on the Neolithic and Bronze Age in Warwickshire, a structured landscape straddling Church, Lawford, and King's Newnham. Oh, it's not Barford necessarily, but it can't be far away. Anyway, there's food to get into, the stuff to get my teeth into there. That's excellent.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. So we should think about winding down. We will continue, obviously, if are sort of a brilliant question. If you want us to carry on, otherwise we shall start winding down. I think.
But on that note, though, I will say, please don't forget that for each monthly podcast we do have a question time.
Oh, yes.
So don't forget, if you have any questions that just something that you wake up in the middle of the night the way you do with wow, I wonder what they did about that. Just send us the question, because we
have a questions section on the podcast, and it's content.
It is, and we love it when it's something that we don't know and we have to go running off and do a load of research. That's good.
Yeah, and then maybe make a film about it. You never know.
You never know. Yeah.
So watch this space to find out what it is we're going to be filming in a few weeks' time when Rupert is over here. It's in the balance there. Anthony Murphy, all the way from the Boyne Valley, says, glad to see you both enjoying some red wine. I picked up a bottle in my local Lidl this evening, and it had my name on it.
Do you know what?
Saint Antoine. I kid you not.
I'm going to make you sick. See, one of the good things about being down here in a wine region is that I can get a very nice bottle of local wine for, in fact, last week it was €1.80 a bottle.
That's shocking.
And I know. I actually splashed out a bit today, and I bought myself 3 bottles at €2.30 each, which is.
Who cares if you've got lousy broadband? Actually, it's not been bad. You've hung on in there tonight, so that's good. Apart from a slight glitch.
A little blip at the beginning, but when it works, it works. It's good. Yeah.
So, was there anything that we started saying and we didn't finish, or anything like that?
I think I finished most of the things that I started saying. I can jabber on, I know.
Yeah. So, just to say, I mean, questions and suggestions. If you think there's an interesting story that has passed under our radar, I think it would make a good subject for a podcast, or make a good subject for a film, or just a little one-off or something that we can illustrate, that we can tell a story about. Then bung them our way. Excellent. So that was fun. Thank you for all you folk what have joined in over the past hour and 20 minutes and helped. It's been entertaining for me, answering all the questions and reading all your comments. really great to see new folk coming in from YouTube and Periscope. My goodness gracious me! So we'll be doing this again.
Yeah, we will. I'm quite thrilled that somebody was on Periscope because I wasn't expecting that at all.
I bet you I'll get. I'll visit Periscope, and I'll bet you that it had quite a lot of viewers, but very few commenters. I've no way of knowing how many viewers there are on Periscope, but Periscope does get viewed. Yeah. And Amberan says, thank you from Lancashire. Well, great to meet you, Amberan. And anybody on YouTube, don't forget, come and visit us on Facebook. Just look out for Standing with Stones on Facebook. And there is a community that you can join in with and post and share stuff with.
Yes, a lively bunch of lovely people.
Bunch of lovely people.
A lively
bunch of people.
Lively bunch of lovely people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Summer says, thank you from Wales. Thank you, Summer, for being with us.
Thank you, Summer.
And helping Thomas out with the time. There's been a little conversation going on there about time zones. And Levy Bloom says, thanks, so happy to stumble across this. We'll watch again. That's from Periscope.
Excellent. Well, it's every month.
Well, every month, yes. Usually on a Wednesday, unless something strange happens.
Yes, we try to make it the Wednesday closest to the middle of the month. Yeah. That's the plan.
And we also try to get the podcast out, if not on the first of the month. Oh, shut up.
But it's my fault. It's way more my fault than yours. We try to get it out at the very beginning of the month. Sometimes it gets a little bit late just because it's not as straightforward as you might think.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's a plan that comes together one way or another.
Yeah. So yes, the podcast usually comes out early in the month, and the open house usually happens in the middle of the month, usually on a Wednesday. So, with that said, it's time for us to say bye-bye to you all. Thanks for watching. Thanks to our Patreon supporters for helping make this happen. If you've enjoyed this, please do consider becoming one of our Patreon supporters by going over to patreon.com/standingwithstones. Have a look, see if there's a level that you'd like to support us at.
Does make a massive difference to our work. So
yes, we've got pretty big plans.
Yeah.
So with that said, we will say ta-ta and till the next time. Bye bye.
And thanks for watching. And don't forget to send us questions.
Yeah. Bye bye.
See ya.